Hi, hello, everyone. Welcome to Community Force webinar. As you all must know by now, my name is Marian Mirza, and I'm going to facilitate this webinar and answer questions that you may have during the Q&A break. Now we are waiting for others to join. Let's see. Okay. While we wait for everyone else to join, let us show you how you use this webinar to ask questions and access the handouts. Now, as you can see, there is a panel on the right-hand side of your screen, and there is an arrow on this panel. Please use that arrow that is represented in an orange box to collapse or open the panel. You can use the question area on the same panel to type in your questions and click on send or enter. We will receive your questions and answer them by typing them in or verbally during the Q&A break. If we miss answering any of your questions, we will send the response to you via email after this webinar. Also, a copy of today's webinar is present in the handouts. Please click on the PDF copy by clicking on the title of the handout as shown here. This handout also contains the links to individual help guides, knowledge-based articles, training videos, FAQs that we are covering today. All of you also have been put on mute in order to avoid any confusion during this presentation. Let's see how many of you have joined. Okay. All right, since most of you have joined, let us get started with our webinar. The topic for today is setting up your evaluation process for the one-to-many application process. We have with us our amazing Christine Smith, who will be our trainer for today, and will go over all the relevant areas under this topic. The duration for this webinar is 1 hour. I will now pass over the mic to Christine to start the training. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Christine.
And thank you so much, Maureen, for that introduction. So let's go ahead and get started since we do have, it looks like a lot of our attendees are here now. So to go ahead and get started, let's just do a brief introduction of what we're going to be covering today. So this, of course, is going to be covering the overview of how to set up your evaluation process when you have a one-to-many application process. So that's when you have one application form, and along with that application form, you have multiple funding sources that you're going to be using to award your applicants one application to apply for all of that specific funding. Different types of funds with different names. So we're going to show you how to create your review committees and then how to assign your applicants to those committees for review. We're going to also talk about the automated scoring functionality, how you can use that with your site, how that's something a little different than your review process if you're using a scoring rubric. So we'll talk about that. And then also, if you have a one-to-many process, we're going to be talking about the show for fund feature. So a lot of times when you have a review process, with that review process, you need to be able to know what the scores were for a specific fund. You have reviewers coming in for that specific fund. So how do you set up the scorecard, the tasks, so that it'll be able to give you the results by that specific funding committee's results? So we'll talk about that as well. So then, of course, who's going to benefit for today's webinar? That's going to be any of you administrators out there that are responsible for setting up the review process, creating those scorecards, assigning committee members to the tasks, assigning them applicants to review. If you're the individual that does that, you're the administrator that does that, then this is going to be a lot of benefit to you today. So just a brief overview of the topics that we're going to be covering. We're going to be talking about hiding applicant names. So if you have a review process and it's a blind review process, you don't want your reviewers to know the names of the individuals they're reviewing. We'll talk about how to hide that information from your reviewers, any identifying information. And then along with that, we'll talk about the show for fund feature since that's in the same location. And then we'll talk about how to create those scorecards and those task cards that you give to your reviewers to go ahead and answer questions so that you know how they feel about a specific applicant. And then we'll take a quick break. And of course, any questions that you have during these areas, feel free to enter those questions in when we get to the Q&A portion. That way, Maureen can answer those. Of course, we do have a recording of today's topic. So I know a lot of you, when you're trying to type in the question, you miss something. And so, of course, feel free to enter your questions, and then of course we will send a copy of this webinar out. And if you have any additional questions, you're always welcome to enter information into Zendesk also, and we can answer those questions for you. So creating committees, after we take a break, we'll talk about how to create committees, how to assign applicants to reviewers, and then how to notify your committee members when it's time for them to begin their assignments. And then we'll talk about that automated scoring feature as well. And then we'll close the session, answer any final questions, and then close the session for today. So hopefully this will take 1 hour. Sometimes, of course, you do know we go over. We do have, sometimes we want to make sure we answer everyone's questions. So that does tend to make us go over a little bit, but we do want to be here for you and be able to make sure that you get those questions answered as best as possible while we're on the call. So of course, the first topic we want to discuss today is going to be hiding applicant name and questions. Now, the hiding applicant names and questions is beneficial if you have a review process and you do not want the individuals reviewing your applicants to know who it is that they're reviewing. That way that solves a conflict of interest. Maybe they might know somebody and then they might not be, they might be more biased towards that person or unbiased towards that person, depending on who they know. And so if you don't want them to know the applicants, then that's what this is going to be beneficial for you, how to hide the data so they don't see any personal information that would identify that applicant. So let's go ahead and go to the site here. And I'm logged in as an admin, of course. And so I'm going to open up my application form from the home dashboard. And go to application settings. This is where you're going to be setting up all the hide features for your review process in application settings. And so for course, first of all, you're going to want to think of what is it you want to hide? What is the identifying information? So in the first area, if you're hiding the entire name of the applicant, you don't want them like when they're in the manage applicant screen here, and you see the names and the email addresses, maybe you don't want them to see that data. How do you hide it from this specific report screen? So when I say report screens, these are the type of screens I'm talking about. So in the application settings, so what they're going to see is when they see a report, they're going to see a number. And that's driven from application settings. And in the general information, so if you don't have this opened up yet, you can just click the arrow here and then go to general information. And then once general information opens up, the key areas you're going to want to make sure you set if you do not want your reviewers to know the names of the individuals is down here at the bottom of these toggles, right above the instruction section here. You're going to see a few toggles that affect the review process. So the very first one is show applicant to committee. So this is applicant, okay? So that means it won't show the applicant in a report. So if I don't want them to see it, I want them to see that number instead of the name. I want the show applicant to committee to be marked as no. Then my committee members, when they get their reports, in that report screen where it lists everybody they have to review, it will not show the name, it will show a number. Also, when you're previewing applications, of course, at the top of a preview page is the name of the applicant, and the applicant information is on that review score, on that preview. It will also hide it from there as well. It'll put a number instead of the name. If you have this set to no, it has to be set to no, saying you do not want to show the applicant to the committee. Now, this does not hide any fields that you've created in your application form itself within sections. So like if you created a field, what's your first name? What's your address? Maybe there's some other identifying information that would give them away that you want to hide, questions that you're asking the applicant to complete that you need to hide. So this does not hide that. I'll show you in a minute how to hide those. This is just for the report aspect. This is controlling anything that Community Force has created that is a report where it's going to give the applicant's name with the data. It's going to hide that, and it's going to hide it from the previews of the application as well. Now, don't confuse this show applicant to committee with show application to committee. What this does is this turns off the entire review process. Your reviewers will not be able to see any of the review process at all. And so when you get into the task side today, we'll show you how to turn tasks, individual tasks off and on. But this will turn off the entire review process. So none of your reviewers will be able to access any of the reviews that they've been assigned. So this is beneficial once everything's over. You want to turn it completely off so those tasks are no longer on their site when they go in from year to year. This will turn it off for this specific applications process. Now these two toggles here, some use, some don't. Some of them may surprise you that we have, but we do have clients that want this. So the first one here is display reviewer task comments to reviewers. So this allows for transparency amongst your review committee. This allows your reviewers to see how every one of the other reviewers across all tasks, this is an all or nothing, across all tasks have reviewed the other applicants. So if they want to see how their counterpart scored a specific applicant, they know they were assigned that applicant as well, they want to see how they scored them, that's what this does. It allows that to get turned on. And then what it does is in the preview of that application form, when they're looking at that application form and reviewing it, the actual form, it's going to create a separate section for every reviewer. It'll have that reviewer's name and then the scoring questions, all the questions that they had to answer and how they answered them. It'll be separate sections for every reviewer. So if you don't want that, you are going to want to make sure to put that as no. And then this one over here, display reviewer tasks and comments to applicants. So this allows the applicants to see every reviewer. It'll create a section with the reviewer's name. It'll show all the questions that reviewer had to answer and how they answered them. It'll show that to the applicant. So if you do not want your applicant to see how your reviewers reviewed them, then you would want to turn this to no. You do not want them to be able to see that. You would set that to no. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then once, of course, you make those settings, you do want to make sure and always hit save and exit to save the settings and be able to move forward. So that's the report functionalities. And on the preview page, hiding that information, allowing information for reviewers to see each other. That's where that is in general information. Now, in regards to hiding a specific section, so like right here, I have a personal information section. So maybe I don't want the reviewers. And remember, this is all or nothing. In a minute, I'm going to talk about per funding source, how to hide things. But right now we're talking about this is a blind review. All my reviewers are doing a blind review process. So I'm going to turn this over. None of them, I want them to have the personal information section. This is all going to give them identifying information. So I want to hide this entire section. If I wanted to hide the entire section, I come over here to the edit. And then once I get to the edit screen, I'm just going to scroll down and you're going to see a toggle hide from reviewer. So if I don't want my reviewer to see this section because every single question in it is an identifying question and it's going to be every question there. And once you hide this section, they can't see anything in that section. You would put this to yes. Okay, and then again, once you put it to yes, be sure to save and exit to save that on that form. Now, let's say I have a personal information section, but I don't want to hide the entire section because there's actually questions in that section I want my reviewers to see. If that's the scenario, do not hide the section. You want to go within the section. So I'm going to click the section name. And once you're in that section, this is where your specific questions are. You're going to look over here. You have a column. That column says hidden from reviewer. So as I look down my list here, I will see yes. Those that say yes are ones that I actually have hidden at this moment. Everything that says yes is currently hidden from my review process. Now, if I found one I didn't want to hide, or I found one I did want to hide, and you can do this both at the same time, depending on what the question says. So if I was to say, you know what, it's okay for them to get address 3 or address 4. I'm okay with that. Then I would select that because it says yes. And maybe there's one I don't want them to see. Maybe I don't want them to know the city they live in. Maybe. Okay. So whatever you select here, depending on what it says over here, it's going to do the opposite when you run the command. So this one says yes. This one right here on city doesn't have anything. So now I'm going to scroll up. You do have to select them. So once you've selected them, I'm going to go over here to more options, select more options, and you're going to see a hide unhide from reviewer in that column. And so when I select that, depending on what that column said, it's going to do the reverse for that specific question that I selected. It's going to give me a message. Am I sure? I'm going to say yes. And now when I scroll down, you're going to see that this now says city yes for that hidden from reviewer. Now, so that's how you do each individual question. You select it and then you type, come over here, and then you hit the options and then you hit hide unhide from reviewer. And then that'll do the opposite. Okay, it's that simple. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is a little bit different in regards to the review process. So a lot of you have a review process, especially since this is a one-to-many. So you have an applicant coming in on the application form, and as they answer the application, they have questions. And certain questions, or depending on when they get matched to a fund, so you're using fund matching, and they get matched to a fund, and once they get matched to that fund, they have another question that appears pertaining to an essay for that fund, or maybe a special section opens up for that fund. So that's one of the scenarios you would use. This isn't just all of them, but that's just an example of when you would maybe want to do this. So when you get to your review process, you have your review committee. So let's say you have a scholarship A, and you have a review committee that's looking at your applicants to match them, making a determination for scholarship A. So you have your committee. So that committee, you only want them to see, you don't want them to see the essays for all of those other scholarships. You just want them to see the essay for the task, the scholarship that they're reviewing. So this also means this is that show for fund feature. This is what this does. And it's also, again, an all or nothing for the entire site when it's activated. So every application will then have the show for fund functionality. And every time you create a task, you will need to identify what fund that task belongs to. So then when we get to the creating task, what you'll do is you'll create the task. You'll tell the system this task is for XYZ fund. And then what it's going to do is on each question, then you don't have to do this on every question. Just the questions are the ones you want to turn off and on. Otherwise, it'll show everything depending on the hide that we just did, hide or show that we just did. But the show for fun, what it does is it actually adds another layer that allows you to turn specific sections off for reviewers if they're not reviewing a specific fund and they do not need to see that section. So if I go back here on personal information, for instance, I have a fund on my site called a DHG fund. As soon as it gets back here. Okay. And only my DHG scholarship committee needs to see this form. So when the applicant gets matched or when the applicant's completing the application, if they're eligible for this fund, they get this section that appears on their dashboard. So since I only want this form to be seen by my committee, I don't need all my other committees for all the other scholarships to see this. It's just clutter on the application form. I can actually go here again on the section level because I have that show for fun feature turned on. And if you do want this feature, this is something that you will need to, it's a hidden feature that you will have to have Community Force turn on for you. But what it does is it then allows me to have a field here, show for fund. And so when I select a specific fund, then what it'll do is when I create the task for this review, it'll be also for the DHG scholarship, and the system will know anyone reviewing the DHG endowed scholarship will need to see this section. None of the other sections are selected. None of those other committees that have the specific task for these scholarships, none of those other ones will see this. The one selected is the one that will see it only. Now, if you don't select anything, like I said, it defaults. You don't have to do this for every single one and make sure, oh, this one's not selected, this one is. It's going to default to show all unless you've specifically selected a fund. So that's the section level. Now, once you put it on the section level, it will turn it off on the question level. So that's where you need to make your determining thoughts of this specific one is one that I want to turn off because it's for that entire scholarship. However, if you have essays, and in this essay section, depending on scholarships they've been matched to maybe, there's questions. So if I click on my essay section, I have all these questions. This one's for this scholarship, this one's for this one, this one's for this one. So this committee needs to see this scholarship, but they don't need to see these two. And the same with this one. They don't need to see those two, and so on. So if I want to do just the question level, do not do it on the section level, because if you do it on the section level, it turns it off completely for all the questions within, and that show for fund won't even be available to be on that question. But if you don't do it on the section level and you come in here to the question level, then what you do is you just come in, you select the name of the question here. I'm just going to select the title. And then you scroll down and you're going to see that show for fund. Okay, don't confuse this with the fund criteria. This is different. This is the show for fund. And then here is where you're going to select the fund or funds that are allowed to see that specific question. So if whatever ones you select are the ones that are going to be able to see that in their review process. And then you just have it, and then you hit save and exit, and then that will save that question so that that review committee will see this one, but they won't, and then you'll go and do it on the other ones too. You'll just put WCFE on this one, you'll put SOO on this one, and then when they're reviewing this, they won't see the other ones. All of them that you tag, only the scholarships that have that tag that's tagged for that scholarship will see that specific question. Unless it's blank, then all will see. So that's the show for fun feature. That's some of the setup you might want to do before you even start your review process, is setting all of those questions up and getting all that set up before you start building your tasks. So then, of course, once you've done all that, then of course the next thing you're going to be doing is creating the task that you're going to be giving to the reviewers. So what are tasks? So tasks are anytime you need to give a group of applicants to another individual outside of your organization, or admins can be within this as well. They can fall into this if you need to know how that specific reviewer or admin scored the applicant they were given or answered questions pertaining to that applicant, that you need to know who the person was that looked at that applicant, the questions that they answered, how they answered them, and if you have a scoring rubric tied to it, what was the score given to a specific question, and a tally of that scoring. That requires a task card that has questions that go to reviewers. So anytime a reviewer that's outside the system wants to be able to review an applicant, they want to see an online version of an application form. Maybe they don't need to do any questions. Maybe they don't need to have any scores. In order for you to turn that over to them, you do still need to create a task with at least one question. And if you're not doing scoring, you're just giving, the reviewer all the applicants for them to read their applications so that they can see them. All you need to do is just add a question. Did you review this applicant? Yes or no? Very basic. And then they get the applicant, they see all the applicants they were given, and they just have to answer that one question. And that way, they've done it. They've looked at that applicant. So you know that when they do actually maybe they come together as a team, and then they have a chairperson enter all the scores. Then you have that comfort of knowing that they did actually look at the applicants ahead of time. Okay, so but you do have to have at least one question. So hopefully that's understandable there. So how do you create it? So creating a task is very similar. When we say creating task, we always say it's just like creating another section in the application. So you're creating a section, but you're building it just in a different area because it's going to different individuals. The applicant isn't getting this to answer. It's going to individuals that you're going to be assigning. So in the evaluation section here, so I'm still on the home. I had selected the application. We're sitting here on this screen, and you should have a tab that says evaluations. And under evaluations, under the first setup functionality here, if you open up this menu, you're going to see reviewer task setup. So here are all the tasks I currently have set up. And you may ask, okay, why do you have so many? So anytime you have a task that you're giving a group of individuals or a committee member or someone, and you need to know pertaining, like for my instance, I need to know all of my applicants that were matched to my AJG scholarship are going to get scored by the AJG committee. They're responsible for looking at that applicant based on the AJG parameters and scoring the applicant based on the AJG. I need to know for that scholarship specifically what was the final score for that applicant. So of course, applicants can be matched across multiple scholarships. So I need to know the score for what was the AJG scholarship. So I have to create a task for that scholarship. When I want to know the score for the DSS, I need to create a task for that scholarship so I can separate it out and know that this is the score that the committee that did the DSS scholarship gave this applicant. And so what I'm going to do is then I'll assign that to those individuals that are responsible for scoring for that specific scholarship. So that's why I have all these. I have accounting related scholarships because I am going to give this to my accounting committee, and I need to know what is the score just for that accounting task. I want to see the specific score. I want to look at a report and see what was that task that I gave them. How did they score the applicant just on that task? Now the system will, when it's adding tasks together, any task that's currently turned on, which you'll see this here, I have a no and a yes, it will add all the tasks together. When we get into the next session, you'll understand what that is, but that's why we create all these different tasks, because it'll add them all together if they're turned on, and then there's a toggle where you can change from task to task to see the scores for that specific task, or you can come here and turn them off and it won't tally those in. But it'll actually average across all the tasks that are currently active at the time you're looking at the scores. So that's why here we have the ability to turn this off so that you don't see, when you're in results, you don't see, maybe you just want to see just for a specific task, you can turn everything off and just see that task. So that's why we have this. So that's something you're going to want to think about when you're creating your task cards also, is how do you want to see the final results? Do you want to see the results for just this one committee? If you do, and just for that one scholarship that they're looking at, or maybe they're looking at multiple scholarships, you're still going to need to create multiple task cards for each scholarship that they're looking at if you need to get a separate score for that specific scholarship or funding source. Anything that's funding. When I say funding source, I'm talking about anything that is a fund, is any money that is being used to give your applicant an award or give your applicant the monetary needs that they're requesting. So that's what the fund is, that pool of money that's being used to give that applicant their award, their final results, their final monetary amount. So I have scorecards. So how do I create one? So you said it's like creating a section. So it's just like when you create a section, you can clone one or you can create one. If you have a new one and you don't have any tasks that are very similar that you could clone from and clean it up or add to, then you would want to create a new task. So you just hit create task. And so the first thing, of course, is what's the name of the task? And then the unique name is like the XML when you're creating a section Of course, you have to give it an XML name. So I'm just going to give it test 1. And then I'm just going to call this test 1 XML. The order. So the sort order isn't important unless you have levels and you want to keep track of your levels of your review. So maybe some of you have a level 1 review and you do a process of elimination, and then you have a level 2 and a level 3. You can actually use this sort order to put which one's the first one they're going to do, what's the second level, what's the third level. You can use it that way. Otherwise, it's just when you're entering questions, how does it fall on that listing we just looked at? So that's the order. So I don't care about my order right now, so I'm just going to put a real broad number because I don't really know exactly how many I have. So I'm just going to make this 25 so that it puts it at the end of the list. And then these are the toggles that allow you as an admin to see tasks in drop-downs, to see tasks and results. So if this is turned on, it's going to be turned on in results. It's going to be turned on when you go to try to create a report based on a task. If you don't see that task in that drop-down list to be able to select, it's because this isn't turned on. That's for you. This display and review reports is for you, the admin. It allows you as the admin to see those tasks in drop-downs. Display to reviewer is what allows the reviewers to see the tasks they've been assigned. If a reviewer can't see a specific task they've been assigned, it's because this is turned off. So of course, maybe you have all those different levels and you don't want to turn, like I told you, remember in the application settings, that general information, I said it turned off the entire review process. Maybe you don't want to turn off the entire review process, but you want to turn off a specific task. That's what this does. That turns it off so that just this task is turned off to your review process. It's also beneficial. Maybe you've got your reviewers, they know they can log in, they're very anxious to do their reviews, and so you don't want them to start the review process till you're completely done with the assignments. Then you do want to go ahead and turn this off. Once you get the assignments done, then you can come back here and turn it on and then notify them that it's ready for review. So that's that. Now, since I have that show for fun functionality turned on, if you don't have that show for fun and you don't have a need for that, you won't have this box here, but I do. This is where you say this task belongs to a specific fund, and you do have to select a fund. Every task has to have a fund tied to it when you have the show for fun functionality. So I'm just going to select this one fund here. Then I'm going to say this task belongs to this fund. So any questions I have that say show for this specific fund is going to show just for that committee that has that fund. Otherwise, it's going to show everything if I didn't tag the question. And so then once I'm done creating task, I just do save and exit. And now I have the shell of my task created. So it's down here in the listing. And it's just like when you create a section, if you know, when you create a section, all you have is just the shell. And now you have to go over here and add questions. So this create edit is where you then add the questions. And then this is a blank slate. There's no questions that have been added to this yet. So I click here to add a question, and then you just follow suit like you do with creating questions in a section. When you're creating questions on your application form, you're doing the same here, except it's not going to the applicant. These are sections you're giving to your review processors. Okay, very simple. So now I'm going to go out and talk about cloning a task. So to clone a task, if you already have a task, so maybe I have these scorecards, I need to know the specific score for this specific rubric here, this specific scholarship, but it's the exact same. Maybe I have a WCFE, and then maybe I have another scholarship for WCFE, but it's a different scholarship, maybe the same people, but I need a different score. Maybe there's a different essay I need another score on. I can take this task and clone it and create an exact replica. So to clone a task, you just come here, very simple, like cloning a section, clone a task. When you clone a task, you are able to clone from different applications. So I'm going to select my this, and I'm going to say this is within the application I'm currently in. I want to clone. What's the task I want to clone? Like cloning a section, what's the section I want to clone? I want to clone the task. Let's clone this one, WCFE scholarship. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do the AJG because there's some stuff in there I want to talk about. So I'm going to take my AJG, And you'll notice when I select it, it does give it that task name. So this is where I would change the name. And I'm just going to put a 2 so that they fall next to each other, hopefully. And then there's that unique XML name. You do need to give it a unique one so it doesn't get confused and think it's the same task. And then I'm keeping both of these turned on. I'm going to select the fund AJG because it is also for the AJG. And then I'm going to hit save and exit. Okay, so now once I've created it, I put it at the end here because I didn't do my sort order like I should have. So if I want to make a change to a task, maybe the name or something, I realized, oh, it's not where I want it to be. You can go and click on the task name. You can either move the arrows, but like me, I've got a long list, so it's going to take forever. I can go here and click on the name and then come up here. I can't remember the number it falls in, so we'll just be real broad here. Save and exit. And now it's going to move it up to that location next to where I want it to be. Or I can just move it down here real quick like this. Okay, so now that I have this built, I'm going to go and make adjustments for this specific task because they're not all the same. There's going to be some differences. I'm going to come in here and this is where I'm going to do that. So I can come here, I can delete a question. I can come here, I can add another question. Just like deleting and adding when you're building a section, you're adding questions to sections. Very exactly the same. Not similar, it's the same. It's the same question types, everything. There are a few exceptions to question types that aren't available on the scholarship side, the task side, that aren't available in the application side. But all of the questions that you're able to build, if you do the add question, you'll see it'll give you the listing of what you're allowed to use in creating task cards / scoring rubrics for your applicants. Or your reviewers, not your applicants, your reviewers. So now you have a scorecard and you have all these questions and you want the system to pick up a score and tally it and give you a total at the end. This is the Community Force system. You want it to actually score applicants, give you a score for each reviewer and each question that they answered. So how do you do that? The whole entire task will have a total, a score total, but each individual question has to be set up with a specific type of question. So there's a drop-down question and a numeric question type are the only two question types you can use in the Community Force rubric system, task system, that will pick up scores. So if I made one of my questions and I wanted it to be a score and I made the question type text, it's not going to add that into my final score. So if I want this to be a score and I want the system to pick it up, I can make it a numeric question type so that they have to type in a number and the system knows, okay, I need to add that. Or when you create a drop-down, like I have here, I have drop-down questions. So I'm going to click this question type. When you create a drop-down question type, so here's my question type drop-down. Anytime you do that, you have to give the system the listing for that drop-down. And you do that over here and add values. When you want the system to know that it's a score to be added, the value column here must be numeric only, no text, no symbols. It has to be a numeric field for the system to know. This value must be numeric for the system to know that it needs to add that as a score. Now you're going to notice over here in the label, I have text and numeric. This is what the reviewer is seeing on their side. They're seeing this is what a 15 means, this is what a 10, this is what a 5, and this is what a 0 would mean when they enter that, when they select that option. That's telling them when they select this option, the system's going to give it a score of 15. That's what they're seeing. That's the label that the reviewer is seeing in that drop-down listing. However, the value is what our system is using to tally those scores up. So it's very important. Do not put text over here, but you can put text on the label side. And then of course, make sure and hit save and close to save any changes you made on those drop downs. So that's how you create fields and questions that will average and total scores for those specific questions that they're answering. And at the end, it'll tally the entire group of scores and give you a grand total for that score sheet. You don't need to create a total question. The system does it for you. Okay, let's see here. Am I covering everything I want to on this? Another question type that is on scorecards tasks that I just want to kind of go over is one, is this reviewer approval? So this is a special question type. What it does is, so I'm just going to do here, is give them a, you don't have to create the question drop down. But if you select this reviewer approval, what it'll do is give them a drop down. And then when I hit save and exit here, it'll put it down here as a reviewer approval question. And I'm just going to go out one level so you can kind of see when you create a task, what you can do. Did I do that in this one? No, I don't remember now. I think it was. Okay, and if I come here and hit the I here for preview, it will open it up and then you can preview what it does. So this is that question I just created. And what it did is it quickly created a drop down, a radio button selection of approved, not approved, and need more information. So that's just another nice little question that's out there for the review tasks only. It's a question type that's built just for review tasks. Now, when I'm in these questions, I don't know if you caught it or not. When I'm in here, you're going to see, whoops, over here, create edit to get to the questions. You're going to see over here a column that says score and comment. And you're going to notice they all say no except one. So you're allowed one question out of the entire card that you're creating to be a question that appears when you're looking at the results reports. When you're looking at your review result reports, there's a column that says comments. That will report in that column how they answered that one specific question. So in this illustration here, let's say I have my chair is the only one answering this question. And so in my scenario, I have, where'd he go? There he is. I want to know for this applicant, what was their overall recommendation? So here on this question, I've made that my question to be shown as that comment. So when I'm looking at the results, I can see scores, but I also can quickly see the yes and no's for that specific question. I'll see the comment column and I'll say yes, 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 no, 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 no. And I'll know, okay, this applicant, they said yes, this one they said no, this one they said yes. I'll be able to quickly see that in that comment field. Now, like I said, you're only allowed one. So like this one, I currently have as my scoring comment. And so when I open it, the one you selected will have the box checked right here. Any other ones, once you've selected one, any of the others, when you go in, it will be grayed out and will not allow you to select it because it's already been selected. So if you decide, oh, I don't want that one to be the scoring comment, you will have to backtrack, go to the one, go to this specific question, remove the checkbox, and then come back to the question you want to be the scoring comment, and then it'll have that box open for you until you select another field to be that comment. So that's what that's for. That's what that scoring comment question is for. So I am going to break here and let Maureen address any questions that may have come through. So it's all yours, Maureen.
Thank you so much, Christine. Okay, we do have a few questions here. Can I preview my scorecard without setting up the committee process? At this point of time, yes, you can. As Christine was showing here on the evaluation setup scorecards, first thing, right, that you see, you have a left-hand side, you have the preview option, right? So you can see a copy or a preview of your scorecard. Now, for this, you do not need to set up any committee. So that's the easiest way. As you create your new scorecard, you should be able to preview them from time to time. There's a question that says, my scorecard has categories. We are not talking about criteria, okay? Can the system give me a scoring total for each category? All right, let's just say educational information is one category. Then the other one is essays is another category. In this case, my suggestion or our suggestion for you would be to create separate scorecards. We do not have the functionality yet in the system, but we will take it back to our team. Hopefully, in the future versions, we might take your feedback into account and add it to our new version or the upgraded version in the future. But currently, if you have like separate categories to get a score at the end, please create separate scorecards for each of these. Okay. The reviewer approval question type. Can I change the options? As Christine was showing, there are only 3 options available, and these are hard-coded into the system currently. Approved, not approved, and need more information. Okay. So if you want to change these options, we cannot change. These are hard-coded. You'll have to create a separate question altogether and add maybe add it as a radio button or a drop down, maybe depending upon how many options you're allowing them to select, maybe 1, maybe 2. If it's only 1, create a radio button with your customized options, like fully funded, partially funded, not funded, right? So you can create those, but create those as a radio button or a drop down in such a case. Just ask one more question. The rest I'm answering on the Q&A box. If you have any questions, please feel free to, type in your questions. We don't use a scorecard. Do I still need to have a scorecard or a task in order to make the assignments? Yes. These are 3 separate entities. If you look at in the system, your applicants are separate, right? Your information on the application is separate. If you have to bring them together, you have to create a scorecard. And from here on, Christine is going to add another piece of information. The next topic in the agenda is creating committees. So once that is in place, you can bring all of these entities together. And for that, you need to have a scorecard. I think I'm done, Christine. I've responded to the rest of the questions in the Q&A box. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Back to you, Christine. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Maureen, for answering those questions. So now let's go to creating our committees. So creating committees, so you've got your tasks, and then the next thing you do is you need to create the committees that are going to be reviewing those tasks. So a committee is going to be a group of individuals, or sometimes a committee could just be one person. Maybe it's a chair, the person that's going to be reviewing all of the applicants for that specific task that you created. So you created the task. So now who are you going to turn it over to? You're going to turn it over to one person to do the whole entire task, and only that person is doing that task, or is it an entire committee? So anytime you have just one person, you do need to create the committee for just that one person. You need to call it that, maybe that committee title, that person, that role that they have. Or if it's a group of individuals, you need to create the name of that group as well. So that is what committees would be. So let's go to the site here. And to create your committees, you're going to go right here to manage committees is the next step under the manage automated scoring, which we'll talk about later. But the manage committees is what the next step. You create your task. Then the next thing is now you got to create your committees. Now, before you can add someone to a committee or create a committee for them to be assigned reviews, they do have to have a user profile created, and that has to be a reviewer profile for them. Unless they're an administrator on the site, they also can have assignments. If they have an administration account already, then they need to have, if they're an employee of your organization, then they'll have that administration account. But if they're outside of your organization, they need a reviewer role type profile created for them. Then once that role type's created, you'll be able to be adding them to the committee. So you need to do that first, and then once it's created, then you come and you add them to the committees. So how do you create a committee? Very simple. Here's a button in Manage Committees called Add Committee. So I'm going to click it, and I'm going to give it a name here. let's go 100. I'm sure I got a test one out there already. And hit save and exit. And now I've created the name of the committee. And then this is where I add who's going to be part of that committee, who's going to be in that group that's going to be doing a specific task. So here is my list of names. I can scroll through that listing if I want to scroll through it. However, if you want to, you can also filter, and then you can search for an individual by putting their information here. And then hit the search button, and it will find that person. And then you select whoever you want to put into the committee by selecting their name, hitting the directional arrow, and moving them to the right-hand column. Now, maybe I have multiple. I can hold the Control key down and then hit select them as I'm holding that Control key down, and then hit the arrow and move those individuals over. Now, maybe you get here and you realize, oh, I didn't create a user profile for a specific individual. You don't have to go all the way back to administration, set up users. There is a click here, right here, that will open up that same location to where you can quickly add a user. Make sure to make their role type reviewer, and then hit save and exit. And then once you hit save and exit, they'll be available for you to add them quickly. So that's a nice little quick tip of how to add somebody. So here you have your committee, and then once you are done adding your committee members, I'm just going to throw some in here real quick for illustrative purposes, and then you just hit continue. You do need to hit that continue for it to finalize that build of that committee. Yeah, there it is. There's the test 100. And then here they are in the listing. Now, maybe you realize, oh, I put Ann in there and I shouldn't have. No worries. You can just come over here, and there you can make edits to what you just did. So if I come here and click the edit, notice it takes me to just change the committee name. I can change the committee name here and hit save and exit. I can change the committee name here and hit assign members to go back to that membership screen. If I hit exit without save, if you notice, if I hit it and I click the name here, this is where I can make adjustments to the individuals that are in that committee. So clicking the name makes the adjustment to the individuals. Clicking the edit just makes the adjustment to the name, and then you have that second button that takes you to adding the individuals. So one rule of caution when creating your committees, maybe you create your committee, you do your assignments. Once you've done your assignments, which we'll show you here in a minute how to do that, you realize that Ann's not going to be able to be part of the committee. So you've already done your assignments. Anytime you've done assignments to your committee members, assigning them their tasks, assigning them their applicants, and then they come to you and say, hey, I can't do this review this year, the first thing you want to do is undo the assignments first, then remove your committee member from the committee. Do not come here if you've already made assignments. Don't come here and remove Ann, because if you do, then all of those assignments that you have out there, it can cause issues with the system. You always want to take and remove the assignments so that you know that all of that got removed, and we'll show you how to do that today. Then you can come here and remove the individual from the committee, add your new person to that committee, and then hit continue. So that's pretty much working with the creating of the committees, and then hit continue. Now right here, of course, I hadn't made any assignments, so I can move around, I can delete, I can add, I can do what I want. But once I start making assignments, that's when you really have to start doing some thinking about, okay, I don't want to just remove them, because I've got all those assignments out there that I made. I need to know, first of all, who did I assign, so that I know who to assign the new ones to, the new people, and all of that. So that's why we always have that. We want you to go to the assignment first and remove it once you've made those, so you don't have any mistakes, because once it's gone, you can't bring it back. And the assignment to the applicants, I should say. This, once it's there, you can bring it back, of course. Okay, so that's managing committees. The next thing, after you've, of course, created your committee, you've created your task, you are now ready to assign applicants to those committees. So we're ready to give them their assignments, and so that they can start the review process. So how do you do that? So again, we're still on the home page. We're under Evaluations tab. We're now going to the next step, Assignment to Committees. So this is the screen that you see when you first come in. If you haven't made any assignments, there's nothing going to be at the bottom. Once we start making assignments, you'll start seeing this populated down here at the bottom. But this is the screen that you go to make your assignments with a one-to-many process. So this is where the task that you created, so what's the task you're going to assign? So I'm going to assign, let's see here, who do I want to use in my illustration? Let's pick the WCFE scholarship. So I have this task. So this is the task I'm going to give them. This is the group of scores or the questions I want them to answer. And then I always come down here and do the committee next. Some people don't, some do all this and then come down here, but I like to get all this out of the way so I know I've done it. This is the task. I'm going to give it to my WCFE committee. And so then as soon as I select it, it gives me those members down here. Then I can kind of see, okay, everything looks good there. So let's proceed. Select status. So this is where you want to use caution because especially with a one-to-many, because applicants are getting matched in multiple scholarships. So as soon as they are assigned, the applicant has been assigned in a specific task to a committee member, their status on the site is immediately on that first assignment is going to go to a status of under committee review. So when you're here on the assignment screen, when it starts showing applicants, it's only going to show you applicants that have been submitted and forward in the system. It's not going to give you pending submission. So I always leave this to all because then I don't have to think, okay, maybe they match to another scholarship. I don't want to miss them because I'm filtering on a status of under committee review and they were already in another task. I don't want to miss them. So I leave it to all so I don't miss anybody, whether they've been assigned a task or not. Anyone who is submitted their application and being matched and being eligible, I want them to show up. So I leave it as all. Now the select status detail is helpful in core, of course, if you have all those different levels and you've eliminated level 1, so you've added a status detail approved for level 2. Then when I'm doing my level 2 review, I can come here and say select the next level and then select it, and then it'll only give me the applicants that are at that status. So when you're doing those levels, it's always good after the end of each level that you've reviewed to go in and add a status detail of approved and denied. And then when you come here, those that have been approved for level 2, like approved level 1 or approved level 2, approved level 3, all of them that say approved for the level you're working on, then you will only get those applicants because you can filter out on that status detail. Okay, so I have my task. I have the committee that's going to be doing it. Now, the next thing you're noticing in that left-hand box is there's no applicants appeared yet. So now this is where I start determining, okay, who do I want to pull in? What applicants do I want to be part of the WCFE scholarship? So this is where you got to think. So I have my system doing matching. I have the matching fund where I've created my funds and I have the system. I've built criteria on my matching funds criteria when you build out the application, that the application knows that based on certain questions, the applicant is eligible for XYZ fund. So my WCFE scholarship in my application settings here, and now I'm going to go out and see here, I have my managed funds criteria. I've told the system that the applicants that meet the criteria that I've set for that specific fund here are the ones, when I select that funding opportunity, I want them to appear. So if I go back to the evaluations and to the assignments to committees, and because right now the system doesn't know who my WCFE applicants are. Right now, if I was to say display applicants, it's going to give me every single applicant that has submitted their application form. So this is what this funding opportunities does. If you were in the last one for the one-to-one, Maybe you have a custom filter, maybe you want all the males or all the females. This allows you to filter on a specific question and get just the applicants that fall into that category. But this is going to look at every fund that I select based off of how I created the matching to match the applicants to that fund. And then what the system thinks, all the applicants that matched based on that criteria, it will display those applicants only. So here's my funding opportunity. This is where I then say, okay, what's the fund that I want to match the applicants to? So I'm just going to select the one. If I selected multiple, it's going to give me the one that matched to this one and the one that matched to that one. So anytime you're doing this, you always want to make sure you only have the one fund selected. I've seen in the past where they've selected one, did all the assignments, came up here, they changed the task, they changed the committee, they came here, did not remove that one and went to another one, and it started pulling both the groups of applicants, and then they both got assigned. And they were like, well, why? Well, because you didn't unselect it when you went back to change to a different funding source. So that's very important when you're changing funding opportunities and changing and creating assignments for another fund. Always make sure to come up here and remove the prior one. If you're not going in and out of this section, you're just staying in here and doing all your assignments, it's very important to make sure that you unselect the one you don't want and select the one you do. So here you can kind of see I've unselected them all. If you do none, it's going to remove them quickly, so you'll know, just quickly hit none and you'll know it'll clear it, and then you can just click the one you want, click OK, and now I know it's only going to give me the applicants that match that specific funding source. Okay, so now here I have a blank slate still because I haven't hit this button. I also don't have any assignments. So this assigned, unassigned, and all is looking at this task only. And it's saying who of my applicants have been assigned to this task. Unassigned means who has not yet been assigned to any reviewer. Once they're assigned to one, they go to an assigned status. So nobody's been assigned, or all applicants, it's going to give them to me whether they've been assigned or not. Now you'll also notice over here when you have your committee and you select your task, a little assignment worksheet pops up over here. This is an Excel worksheet that will give you, based on this criteria, it'll give me the applicants and allow me to do a worksheet, an Excel worksheet. It'll give me that Excel worksheet that I can work outside of the system. It'll just give you the unassigned. Once you start assigning, it'll drop them off. It will allow me to have a worksheet that I can do outside of this system, do it out in the Excel spreadsheet, and then come here and do it once I've done it outside. It'll kind of that way. It'll kind of give you a who you have you done. You can kind of compare that Excel spreadsheet to what you've got at the bottom here at the end. So if I hit unassigned, I'm saying give me everybody that has not yet been assigned to this task. Hit display applicants. And now it gives me all the applicants. I have 18 of my applicants that matched to this funding, that match to this scholarship. They're eligible for this scholarship based on questions that they answered in the application form. They're eligible to receive this scholarship because they match the parameters needed for this scholarship. So this is the committee that's going to be scoring these applicants. So how do I want to do my assignments? This gives you a nice multiple way of doing it. You can select all the applicants to go to all of the members, hit save assignment. All three of these are going to get every one of these. So Anthony's going to have 3 reads, Alfonso, Amber, and so forth. All and all. That's one way. Or you can make your own selection. Say, I want Anthony to go to Christine, and I want Anthony to go to Community Force. And then make my assignment. And then do the next one, and then do the next one, and then do the next one if you want. Or you can pick 3 applicants. Do it yourself. Make your own selection. However, if you want a random selection, you can say, okay, random selection, I want 3 applicants, hit go. It's going to select those 3. And I want those 3 to go to Christine. Select Christine and hit save assignment. Or I can do the same over here. I can say these are my 3 applicants and randomly select 2 reviewers to review them. Hit go. It'll do the random selection for you and then hit save assignment. Okay, so I'm just, for illustration, I'm just going to do all, and everybody's going to get a read. So I have 18 applicants with 3 reviewers, so that's 18 times 3. And then we're going to hit Save Assignments. And now I've made my assignments, and they're all down here at the bottom. So now you can see there's 54 reviews created for these applicants. Now you'll notice in this sheet down here, you can kind of look at it. You can sort by applicant alphabetically. You can do reviewer. All these columns you can sort and see what's going on. Now when you start doing multiple tasks, they're all going to be down here. This filter right here allows you to be able to filter a specific task that you want to just see the reviews for that task. Since you just did that one, you kind of want to see what you just did. You can actually filter by a specific committee. So maybe you only want to see the filtering for that committee that you gave. You do have to select the task and then the committee. Or maybe you want to see just who did you give to a specific reviewer. So maybe you had a scenario, maybe this specific person, I've made all my assignments, I've turned them over, and they come to me, they haven't done the reviews yet, they haven't done any scoring, and say, hey, I'm not going to be on the team, I'm not going to be on the committee this year, please remove me. So that's why you would want to sort by a specific reviewer maybe. And then also you can sort by a specific applicant. So maybe you're like, oh, who did I give Anthony to? So once you do this here, you can just hit display assignments, and then that'll show you who did you give Anthony to. Okay. And then of course, if I want to undo it, I need to come back here, do all. Okay. Okay, so now let's say I need to remove a reviewer. So maybe I had that scenario. Maybe I need to make some changes. So I'm going to come here, I'm going to filter on a reviewer. I'm going to remove the Community Force test. I'm going to say display assignments. So I have these 18 assignments. So I know that all of the applicants got this assignment. So right now, if I go up here to assigned applicants, I'm still on this task, and I hit display assigned applicants, it's going to show me I have 18. If I say unassigned display applicants, it's going to show I don't have any unassigned. And so even when I'm doing just a reviewer like this, since I've already assigned these applicants to someone else, if I come here and select all of those applicants, and this is per page, so I would have to do this all if I want to get everybody at once and do it all at once. Click all, and then I hit remove assignment. I'm going to say yes. And now, whoops, I did the whole group there, didn't I? Okay, so now I want to change this so that I get the other ones. Okay, so now now you're going to notice we're down to 36 because we lost that 18 from the Community Force test. So of course, what I need to do is go to my committee now. I would go that manage committee, add the new person, come back here, and that new person would then show on this listing, select them, and then here, notice if I hit unassigned applicants, they're not going to show up. Okay, so then what I have to do is go to assigned applicants. And now I've got to remember, okay, who were the ones that went to Community Force that I need to redo? Then that's where then you're going to come here and select them and then give them to the new person, hit your save assignment, and then that new person would have them. So you remove it from the old and then come back here. But sometimes when you do those assignments, you come here and it's like, well, I just unassigned it from that person. If they were assigned to other reviewers in that committee, they're still going to be in the assigned applicants because they have assignments to other committee members. Okay, so that's how you add and remove. So the next thing then, of course, is once you're done with your review process, adding your assignments, you're ready to notify your reviewer. So how do you do that? There's 2 places. So from this screen here, you can come down to the bottom here, select the reviewer. You only want to select them once because each time you select them, they're going to get an email. So you're just going to come here and select the ones you want. I'm looking at the reviewers. And then here, I want Christine. Or if you just want to send it to one person, you just can select the one you want it to go to. And so whoever you select over here, you hit notify reviewers, and this will open up the screen to create the email. Now, you're going to notice over here, you're wanting to create your email, but it doesn't have a field for the reviewer. How do you get an email template that gives you that field? So right now, if I was to put this name in, that's going to populate it. Dear, first name is going to be the applicant name. I want it to be the reviewer name. So I come here to this email template and I look for the one that says committee applications are ready for review. When I select that template, notice here it will give me those merge fields, and I can plug those merge fields into this template if they're not already there. This is my special template I've built in my notification center for my reviewers, so I know it has the correct names. And so now once I've selected the email, or you can type an email, I just needed this field, I can actually come here, remove this, and type a specific email I want to that person. You can do that, and then you can hit send now, or you can actually schedule the email, and maybe you don't want to send it for 2 more days. In 2 days it would send it if you scheduled it. So maybe you're still working it, you're going to be done today, but you don't want the email to go out till tomorrow, then you can go ahead and do that. Okay, and then hit the schedule to schedule it. Okay, now the other place, if you go to the manage committees here, you can send a nice quick little template to the entire email to the entire committee by selecting them here, hitting notify. This goes to the entire committee, not just one person. Very basic template. Email, there's no templates available to select from. This is going to be the name of that individual, and then you get that individual in the committee, but it's going to go to everyone in that committee, and then you just hit send to send it. Okay, so that's how you notify them. Notify your committee members. Now, the final thing we want to talk about is how to create automated scoring. So first of all, what is automated scoring? So automated scoring is different from the rubric task that you give to reviewers. Automated scoring gives your applicants a score automatically in the system based on how they answered a specific question. So maybe if they have a GPA of a certain level, you want to give them a high score of maybe a 10 or a 15 or a 20. You want to give them a score based on that GPA. If it's a 4.0, maybe if it's a 3 to 399, you want to give them a score of 10. If it's and so forth. Or maybe you're looking at, and I got to make sure I don't say EFC because we don't have that anymore. You're looking at the SAI, and that you want them to get a high score so that okay, they have a financial need, and I want them to have an extra 10 points added to their score because they have a financial need, to put them higher on the list. So that's what automated score does. It looks at those scores and then adds an automated score and creates a report so for each question that they answered, what was the score they were given. So again, in the evaluations under manage automated scoring, now since this is a one-to-many application process, I have all of these scholarships tied to it. I do need to create scores for each scholarship. Now, if I'm doing it for the entire, if I come here and I create an automated score and I create it right here without selecting any funding source, if I don't select anything, which here it is required, you would want to just have it select the entire application, or you would select all here, and it's going to put that on every single one, not dependent on the scholarship. So any scholarship they've been matched to, they're going to get that score. So I select all, and it's going to create a score depending on every scholarship they've matched to, and then it'll create the score. If I just want a score for a specific scholarship, so maybe I just want to do a score on my AJG, I can select it and click OK. And when I create this score, it's only going to put it on the AJG scholarship. Okay, so if I select all, it's going to put them on all. If I select none, of course, it's not going to put them on any of them. And then if I just want that score to be based off of the AJG, maybe the AJG is a financial one, and so I'm only going to create it on that. I don't need it on all these others. I just want it on the AJG. I can create it for each individual fund, can have its own automated scoring system created for it. And of course, once you select the fund, the next thing is where's the question that they need to answer. So here I might go to financial information. And the question maybe I'm looking for is, Where is it? Let's see here, the SAI. Okay, and then I want to create a condition. Maybe if it is less than 1, a value of 1, I want them to have a score of 20. And then I hit save and exit. And then when I look at that funding, you can see here, I have it. Looks like I've already created one. So if that's the case, I've already created that and did this on error. I can just come here very easily, come over, and you can edit it and make the adjustment. So maybe it's not less than 1. This would be anything that's greater than 0 would get a score of 5. Okay, so that's how you can create those scores. And you can, like you can see here, we have one. So maybe I have to do repeat. You can actually come here and you can hit the duplicate and it'll create a duplicate of that one, and then you can just keep rolling. But every score, so like if you had a 5, a 10, a 15, and 20, you would have to create a separate one for every value that you want to have a score on. And those are based off of questions that have, like a numeric field where you can actually, they're forced an answer. There's not a typo that's going to be in that answer. Drop down questions, checkbox questions, you can create automated scores on those specific questions. Now, you also can clone. So maybe I have this AJG fellowship and I've created these scores. And I also have another one that I need to, these exact same scores need to go to another fellowship or scholarship. So I can hit clone and I can say, okay, all of the scorecard automated scoring that you created on the AJG also push down to this fund as well. And then click OK. And then what it'll do is it'll take the exact same score setup that I created on the AJG and put it on this scholarship as well. Okay, so that's all I have to show you for today. So I'll go ahead and stop there, and Maureen can address any questions so we can go ahead and close out the session for today after that.
Thank you so much, Christine. Yes, last few sessions. Can an applicant be assigned to multiple committees? Also, can a single reviewer be part of multiple committees? Yes, to both. You can have one reviewer be assigned to multiple committees, and you can have one applicant assigned to multiple committees too. So multiple reviewers, whether they're in the same committee or different committee. When you see your average score and the total score, you'll be able to see the information. Okay. Can I remove all assignments from one or more reviewers? Yes, you can, but we highly discourage you from doing that, because if your reviewers have completed a scoring for maybe one applicant or two applicants, or maybe even partial scoring to any applicants, if you remove the assignment, you're going to lose the data. And it's not easy for us to restore data. We cannot promise you that the data can be restored. So think twice. If you're absolutely sure that the reviewer is no longer on the panel, you can remove the assignment. Okay, I cannot see the total of automated and manual score. Well, that's not a functionality currently present in the system, but we have been taking notes. We have forwarded it to our development team, so we do not know. The fact is, automated score comes from one side of the database in the backend, and manual scores is completely different. But we are working on it, hopefully in the future. Not making any promises, but we do not know that in the future we might have the total of automated score as well as manual score, but currently you cannot have those together in your system. I have one more question. Why do I see 3 times the assignments when compared to the actual applications? 3 times or 4 times or however many times, you are going to see more assignments on your assignments to committee screen because of the number of assignments you've made to the reviewers. Like if you have 10 applicants and 3 reviewers, always multiply the 10 multiplied by the 3. So you're going to have 30 assignments. So don't worry. There's not an error in the system. It's just how it is. The number of applicants that have been assigned to reviewers is to the number of reviewers. So multiply those two, you should have the accurate score. If you're not getting that score that is accurate, that is 10 multiplied by 3, there is something wrong. You have not made the correct assignments or over assigned an applicant to someone else. So you can do the calculation yourself. I will stop here because I have answered the rest of the questions in the Q&A box. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to Christine. Back to you.
Thank you, Maureen, for answering those questions. So again, we're going to go ahead and close the session. Thank you, everyone, for your time. We have a lot to cover in the setup, especially with the one-to-many. There's a lot to cover because it is a little bit more complex, a little bit more involved than just a simple one-to-one. So, of course, anything that we couldn't go into a lot of detail, we did include some resources where that'll take you into more in-depth detail on how to do specific things on the topics that we covered today. And so make sure you get a copy of this handout by downloading it so that you have the quick links by clicking on the click here. It'll take you to the area on our help desk as to where that guide is, or that video, or that FAQ. So you can get more in-depth details and have a quick access to the area on our website that allows you to see those help guides. So of course, with today's session, we thank everyone for attending, and any questions that you have, of course, if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to enter a support ticket on Zendesk, and they will be able to assist you with any questions you may have. And also, if you want to maybe have more discussion about maybe a feature that we talked about or something we showed, feel free to go ahead and enter a support ticket again and ask for assistance from a client support specialist, and then they can get on a call with you and set up a time and meet with you in regards to that as well. So you can do all that through Zendesk by just entering our support ticket and asking for what it is that you need to have, and then we can assist you. So we thank you all for attending, and we will go ahead and close the session for today. And then the next month in June, we will start with the next sessions will be, the next one will be a one-to-one on now you've set up your review process. How do you see all the results? How do you see the scores for each committee? How do you see the results for the scorecard, the automated scoring? How do you see all that? How do you monitor it? So we'll go over the one-to-one application on the 11th, and then the one-to-many will be on the 25th of next month. So hopefully we'll be able to answer more of your questions next time, and you all have a very good day. Thank you so much, and goodbye.